I say at work, I'm like a bit like Hannah Montana. You do one job during the day and then you go home and you do another job. And
Hi, Joseph. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Book Besties Club podcast. It's really lovely to have you here. We'll just start off by asking you to tell everyone listening a little bit about yourself.
thank you for having me. Nothing worse than talking about yourself, is there? But yeah, so I live in Dorset with my family. I'm a
Mhm.
part-time author, so I had my first book published 6 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago.
Wow.
So that's relatively fresh. My
Mm.
my normal life, I'm a store manager for Marks and Spencer's across in
Okay.
Bournemouth. So that takes up most of my time, and then outside of the family, all of my time is spent writing. That's my hobby really. That's become another little job. So so far
Yeah.
so good.
Amazing. And I can see behind you, for those listening, I can see behind Joseph that he's got a huge bookshelf full of books. So obviously you're a reader as well as an author. Just tell us a little bit about your journey as a reader. Have you read all your life? Is it something you have started doing more recently? What's it been like for you as a reader?
I think I started reading probably at about 12. I used to go away for the summer and I got like a bit of quiet time and a bit of time with
Hmm.
family, and I sort of fell into your Tolkien-esque type of books. And
Yeah.
I've always very much been a fantasy reader and
Hmm.
started with that, worked my way through The Hobbit, some Christopher Paolini books, all that sort of stuff, and always ended up around dragons and elves and that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
which is obviously why it's so weird that I've written a book so non-fantasy. But
Yeah.
I think I read so many books like that, and then I moved on to sort of historical fiction, like the Manfredi books about
Hmm.
Alexander the Great and things like that. And I think although the story I tell is very different, I think the type of people I read for your C.S. Lewis's, they all sort of spun the same long story across several books, and
Yeah.
that sort of became the style that I ended up writing with. So although the content's different, I think the type of authors I used to read has really inspired me. But
Yeah.
it's always been fantasy. It's never been romance or anything else. It's always
Yeah.
stuck along those fantasy lines.
Yeah. It's interesting, like you said, the book that you've wrote, whilst it has influences from some of the authors that you love, it's completely different. So tell us all about your book. It's called Growing Pains. You said it was released 6 weeks ago. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so it's the first in four books, so it's going to be a series. It's a coming of age novel. It's very much based around mental health and growing up in a neglected household. So if I'm honest, I grew up in a very normal household to most, but didn't particularly grow up feeling loved. I felt a little bit neglected. I didn't have the best
Mhm.
time, and it's very much shaped the adult I am now. So there's certain
Mm.
things that I would struggle to do that perhaps my daughter looks at me and my wife and my son and sort of can't quite understand why I struggle with those things. And they were very much
Yeah.
built around anxiety and going to counselling and trying to get over that. So now my daughter's getting a little bit older and she really enjoys reading. I decided to write write a book so that when she was ready, she could read it and really understand why I
Yeah.
am what I am and what makes me up and why some things that seem so easy to her are quite difficult to me. And so I wrote this book, and then it grew legs as I went, and I ended up speaking to well, I went through the querying stage and sent it into a few publishers and got some real positive results. And I ended up signing with Kronos Publishing, who said instead of one book, why don't we do four, and why don't we extend it? And we sort of made it a bit more fictional, change characters' names, changed some events, made it a bit more interesting for the reader, but still stuck to that core of where I wanted my daughter to understand different upbringings, give you different problems with mental health and what that sort of recovery would look like. We ended up writing a book like that, and it's been a good experience. We're going to give some of the money to charity. So obviously, the more we can sell, the more people download it on Kindle, so on, so on, the more we can give to charity. And yeah, it's become a bit of a labour of love, but it's also quite therapeutic.
Yeah. Wow. What charity are you going to be donating to? Just out of
Well,
curiosity.
so we wanted to go like broadly across children's charities. So we're going to go for Young
Mhm.
Minds for the first book because the company I work for, Marks and Spencer's, raised money for Young Minds through the year, so it felt appropriate. And then with the second book, we'll see whether we swap to another charity or we stick to the same one. But obviously, there's so many out
Yeah.
there, and there's plenty of love to spread, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Wow, that's so amazing. I love that. I love that you're giving back to charity. Yeah, that is amazing. I know you said that it's obviously a fictionalized memoir, so it is based around your experiences in your life. What made it become fictionalized then? I know we talked a little bit about it before, but just tell the people listening what prompted
Yeah,
that decision.
I think there's so much in it that is anybody that I grew up with would look and say, the places I grew up and all the positive characters in the book are there as a homage to positive people in my life. So they're real characters. They've got their names, and if they read the book, they would recognize themselves in it and hopefully be very happy with how they're portrayed in it because
Yeah,
they were positive influences. And then we sort of saw some scope there that, everybody's got a worse story, everybody's got it worse, and nobody's life is that interesting that you can write books about it unless you're a superstar. So there was scope there to take negative characters, and although we wanted them to still show some of the more embarrassing behaviors I've seen growing up and the sort of archaic, toxic masculinity, things like
yeah,
that, we really wanted to get that across. By changing the names, changing the events, we can make it a bit more fictional and a bit more interesting, and actually
yeah,
sort of push into different aspects of what it is to be an abused child. But at the same time, we didn't want to make it, we didn't want to take the sensitivity out of it. So it was always about neglect. It was never about sexual abuse or over the top physical abuse. There is some physical abuse in there. It's set in the 90s. That was, for a lot of people, par for the course. But, you were growing up with parents that said, I got hit, that never hurt me. And you sort of
yeah,
lived under that yoke. So, we tried not to, I tried not to overdo it. And the publisher was very keen I keep it as true to what I'd wanted to start with for the message as possible. But at the same time, making it fictional gave us a little bit more scope to move, to make it a bit more interesting and sort of grab the reader in a little bit more.
Was there a particular moment then when you decided that you wanted to make this book? What prompted you to actually sit down and write it?
Well, I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to write the book for my daughter so she's quite sensitive. I can't sit in front of her and explain to her why we don't see my family and things like that. She
Yeah.
just doesn't get it. So, maybe I was a bit too soft. So she's very sensitive. So I thought as she grows up, she'll get into a position where she's ready to read, and she's such an avid reader. And I was always going to just write a book that just sort of for me and her, for her to read, a bit therapeutic for me. And then I started writing the first book, and before I knew it, I'd written a whole book, and I was only a year in. And that's when I started to sort of look at it and say, could other people read this? Could this help other people? We earn okay money, we live okay. Could this make some money for charity rather than being one of those books that you churn out and self-publish trying to make some cash for yourself? Could I find a publisher, get it properly published, make some money for charity? And that's where we ended up. And that's when they sort of said, well, that's great for a book because it covers 1 year, but what are we going to do to cover the recovery and the future and the teenage years and so on and so on? So we split it into 4. So the first one covers 1 year, which is sort of an introduction to Alex, the main character, and what it's like living as a neglected child. And then the next book, which just gone into editing because hopefully it's going to be released in November, covers the teenage years. And then we'll then push on to cover young adult and then adult, and you'll get a full start to recovery within that.
Wow.
And then obviously I needed a bit of a hook. So the style of writing is entirely from Alex's perspective. So every conversation you hear, every bit of information you get is either a conversation he's having or one that he's overhearing.
Yeah.
Which it was a bit risky. I was a bit worried about it, but the feedback's been quite positive. The reviews I'm getting say that it's really immersive, and because you only see it from his point of view, as confused as he is, so you don't see the father go away and have a conversation with the mother and justify what's just happened. The father goes and Alex sits there and has to contemplate why that's just happened to him. So I'm hoping to keep that going for all 4 books so that you really read it and feel like you're within that, you're in that character's shoes.
Yeah, that's a really unique way to write it as well. I think that's really interesting. What did you feel when they said that they want it to be more than 1 book? Was that something you'd already thought of, or was it just a complete, oh, okay, looks like it's going to be bigger than I thought?
It was, I think I put the first one forward and they really liked it, and they didn't like the ending. They said it doesn't end. It just sort of, it finishes, but what do you want to do next? And I said about, well, my idea was to do more than 1 book. So the first book ends ready for the second book to start. You can't cover it all in 1 book. And then when we started to sort of bat some ideas off each other and the idea of 4 books came up, I thought, well, that's a wonderful opportunity because as somebody who's a first-time author, to be tied into 4 books straight away is fantastic. If you're committed and you're going to get it done, you've got your first 4 books published without any, well, it was
Yeah.
stressful, but without any future stress trying to
Yeah.
find another publisher. Like I said, I went with Cronus Publishing. They've been really supportive. They've really helped everything I've asked for with cover art, things like that. They've come straight back and tried to make it fit into my vision. And
Mhm.
it's, I don't know, you sort of feel like you can go to a publisher and they can come back and ask you to change endings and change concepts and stuff, but they've allowed it to be my project from start to finish, and I very much feel like I'm in charge of it and I'm leading it, which it can be quite difficult with a publisher. So I was quite lucky in the one I
Yeah.
chose that I got the right people.
How did you find a publisher then? What was that whole process like?
It was not fun. So I think
Yeah.
I sent out, so I looked online and it gives you all this advice about how to find an agent. So obviously first off I tried to find an agent and I approached an agent because it says don't approach multiples because they don't like that, and you send your first 3 chapters or first 100 words, whatever it is, to an agent with a cover letter, and then I waited 3 months and nothing came back. And then I thought, right, okay, well now I'll try another agent. And then I thought, well, this is going to take forever. And then I reached out to a friend who I'd gone to school with, who I saw had written some books, and she was a writing coach, and sort of tried to get some advice off of her. And she came back and sort of said, look, send it to a load of agents, send it to a load of publishers. Here's a list of them. When they come back to you, or if they come back to you, you can make your decision from there. And being new to it, I was sort of like, well, they told us specifically not to do that. And she was like, well, you're in control. So, you know, if you send it out and 2 people come back and say, I'm not, one of them says, I'm not happy you sent it to more than just me, you go, well, then that's not the person for me. So she sort of gave me a bit of a different perspective. So then I sent it out to maybe like 50 publishers and agents. I didn't hear back from agents. I think it's, from what I understand now, being quite far into the process, it's quite difficult to get an agent first time out, and they want published works behind them. And there was talk about whether it would be quicker to self-publish, and I sort of sat back and thought, well, you know, you look at Kindle and stuff, so many people are self-publishing, and it's so hard to be heard through the noise because it's such a great way to get your work out there. Quite rightly, everybody's trying to do it, even when they're going through the querying stage. And I thought I'll be patient. And then lo and behold, 4 publishers came back all at the same time with offers, and I was like, oh, thank God, I've snagged something, and I've gone with traditional publishers, which isn't a million miles different to self-publishing, but you get a few more doors open for you where they pay the costs of all the printing, and they can get you into, like, where we've gone into Waterstones and stuff. That's the benefit they give you. But just sent it out everywhere and just hoped for the best, to be honest. And then it came back.
And what made you decide on the publisher that you went with in the end?
I think a couple of them came across almost like vanity publishers, you know, like they wanted a little bit of a outlay, and you get a generic AI written letter about your work. And although they came across very professional and they had a lot of reach, as soon as they started asking cash, it immediately put me off, because it wasn't that I wasn't confident enough to put money into the project, but I just felt like, why have I got 2 publishers saying there's no outlay for cash, and 2 publishers saying if you pay me a certain amount, we'll do this and we'll do that. It just didn't feel right. So I discarded them straight away, and then that left me with 2 publishers, and I went with Cronus Publishing, because when I spoke to Taryn, who does all of that work, she just really seemed to understand and get the project. She was very human, you know. She was happy to have a chat, happy to email back and forth. Nothing was too much trouble. She was very realistic with timescales, and it just felt like she knew what she was doing. And I think it doesn't matter what they're offering you as far as money goes or any of that sort of stuff. If they have released 120 books from X amount of authors and they know what they're doing, then they're the right one for you, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes sense. How did it feel that, I know you just said that your book was in Waterstones. What was that like?
We did the launch in Waterstones, so it kindly had us for the launch event, and we had about 40 people turn up, and half of them were people I knew, and then there was a lot of people other people that came in because it was advertised, and that was quite a weird experience. I think you know, so many people really, you know, spend their lives trying to get their book out there, and they write a piece of work that they think is fantastic, and nobody will believe in it. And like I say, most of them end up self-publishing some fantastic books because they just can't get that little spark of luck. And then you're sitting there thinking, well, I wrote a book, and then within 9 months of finishing the book, going through query and everything else, I'm sitting in a Waterstones signing books, and you think, well, wasn't this easy? But it was so genuinely difficult. And you sort of sit there and everybody's looking at you, and I got interviewed on the stage through the pro, and then we did some signings afterwards, and it was just a very surreal day. You know, the next day you just go back to
Yeah.
work and you're back to normal, and everyone's like, what did you do yesterday? And you're showing them little videos from TikTok of you doing book signings and stuff. And yeah, it just doesn't, I say at work, I'm like a bit like Hannah Montana. You know, you do one job during the day and then you go home and you do another job, and we all laugh about it. But you get back to work and you just completely forget about it. And even when you've got a publisher, it's so difficult to get the book into all the bookshops. And what I've started to do is to post on my TikTok pictures of the book in bookshops as people agree to stock it. Because again, there's just so much noise. Like, you email bookshops and they get so many emails that, yeah, it was exciting to be in a couple of Waterstones, but you want to be in every Waterstone, and you've got to start so low, and there's so much graft. I think last week we managed to get stocked in 4 different bookshops, and I posted all 4 bookshops on TikTok, and you know, they bought 2 books each. There's 8 books gone. It's hardly set in the world alight, but you're in 4 bookshops, you're making some money for charity, your name's getting out there. If next week we get 4 more bookshops, great. But you feel like your launch day is going to be your big moment, and then you realize the hard work starts here. Like, you know, unless you are supported by those massive publishers that can get you into everywhere, you've done all the graft to get to the point where you're sitting having your launch evening in the Waterstones, and then you realize now the new graft starts, and you've got to write book 2 while you're emailing bookshops. And you know, even this morning I've gone into 2 bookshops to sign books, because they've said, well, the books will sell quicker if you can sign them, so will you come in? And because you've approached them and said, will you sign the book, and they've been so supportive, you then drive to 2 different bookshops to sign 2 books in each one. It's so, you know, that's your day off, and it's so much work. But you just have to hope that in 6 months to a year you'll look back, and that moment in Waterstones where you got excited becomes the norm, and every bookshop you walk into, you see your book in.
What's it been like then? Obviously, you said you use TikTok a lot. You found me through TikTok, through Book Talk specifically as it is. How has the experience been for you on social media and using that as a platform for advertising your book?
It's it's been weird. You know, nobody writes a book to then make a video. Like, you write a book because that's the type of person you are. You know, you want to hide behind the screen, and you want to get all your stuff on. You want everyone to read it, and you want them to leave you alone. You know, let's face it, we're introverts when we write and when we read. That's what we're about, with the odd anomaly here and there. And I was told to start. So as soon as I got a publisher around May, they said start TikTok. So I think I've been on it since May, and they said, look, people will want to see a journey, because you know you're going to be published. It will be great to show them a journey. And I started to do videos every couple of videos a week of what I'm doing next. And some of them were a bit, I'm not doing anything, so I'll just do a bit of filler. And some of them were, oh, this is a really interesting week, so much has happened. But I started with no followers in May. I think I've got just around 9,000 followers now, and we're not a million miles from May. So it does snowball quite quickly, and it's been a fantastic way to get the work out there. I've found some really supportive people on there, like the same people that like your posts every time, the same people that comment, the same people that repost. You message back and forth, and they're strangers that you'll never meet. But I think from day one, I met very few negative people. You know, everyone was so supportive, and everybody wanted to know what you were doing next, and people were engaging on the posts. And then I was getting a lot of private messages saying, how did you do this and how did you do that? I think the important step change within myself was that I started to respond to them all. And, you know, if people messaged me asking, how did you do this? How did you do that? I gave them honest answers to how I did it. I would direct them to, you know, my friend that gave me all the advice. I'd direct them to her and say, why don't you go to this person on TikTok, and they help me, they'll help you. And I don't know, it's almost infectious, isn't it? Like, you get onto Book Talk and people are so kind and people are so supportive that you end up finding yourself doing it for other people. And I thought maybe I'll get a couple of hundred followers. Like I say, we're teetering around 9,000 now, which is more than I could have dreamed of. And I do a video every couple of videos a week. Most of them end up in the 300 views jail. I don't know how you get out of that, because they'll have more, they'll have plenty of likes and plenty of comments, and you still get stuck in it. And then suddenly you have a video that goes in and gets 19,000 views, and there's no rhyme or logic to me, but it seems to be working. So I keep doing it. And every time I post, maybe a couple, I don't see a lot because the publisher pulls all the strings, but maybe a couple of books go through Kindle or a couple of books go through a bookshop or whatever. I'll direct people to the independent bookshops that
Yeah.
are stocking the book. Maybe someone goes in and buys it, and the video gets you a sale, then again your name's out there, and it makes a bit of noise, doesn't it? But it's been a wonderful
Yeah,
community
exactly.
to barge into, and they've been very welcoming. So,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. When it came to writing it then, so obviously it's a fictional memoir, but it is based on your experiences in your life. How did it feel revisiting those aspects of your life and writing them down?
like I said before, I mean, I did counselling maybe five, when about 5 years ago when my daughter was quite young. I did counselling, so I was getting a little bit. I wasn't in the right mental space, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody suggested counselling. But as an adult with a family, you start to sort of shake off some of those stigmas that maybe you grew up
Yeah.
with and you had when you were a teenager. And I thought I want to try it, and I did counselling, and I went to the most wonderful woman, and she was so helpful, and I had the best time. Anyone that ever talks about counselling and says they're thinking about it, I'm always straight away like, just go. No matter what you think you're going to get out of it, just go, because you'll get so much just from listening to somebody that understands and is open to having a conversation. It's a stranger that isn't judging you. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think I went through the counselling, and that's where I probably did my recovery. I got diagnosed with PTSD, and we went through a lot of exercises and things like that. And I came out of that better. Obviously, there's been a few
Yeah.
years of proper recovery from there, and I don't know that you'll ever win that battle really, but I'm considerably better than I was. I wouldn't have been able to come on a podcast a few years ago and things like that. So I'm very proud of where I've got. And I
Yeah.
think when I decided to put pen to paper and start to work on the book, I was quite emotionless about it because I'd already done the recovery, but then I found it really therapeutic. And
Yeah.
I think I've always said to people, when I first went to counselling, the counsellor sat in front of me after a couple of sessions and said, look, let's just be really open here. The things you're talking about aren't okay. They're not an okay thing to happen. They're not an okay thing for you to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there, and it's the first validation I've ever
Yeah.
really had. And that straight away set me feeling better about myself. And I
Yeah.
think it became a very therapeutic thing to do. There was a lot of worry about what people might think. There's people out there that might look at the characters and say, well, that could be based on me, that could not be based on me, because some characters were worked on to make them more fictional, some events were very real. I've
Yeah.
always cleared my conscience on that by saying, if you look at a character in that book that's a negative character and think that's based on me, that's really your cross to bear. If those are your behaviors, and if you're going to be upset that those behaviors are exposed to the world within a book, again, be upset by the behaviors that you had a bit of chance for reflection, rather than being
Yeah.
upset by the fact that they've been written down. So I've always
Yeah.
felt comfortable with that. If you don't recognize the behaviors and you don't recognize yourself, you're not in the book. You've got nothing to worry about. So
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
Yeah. What would you say then is, for like someone who's reading it, what is the main thing that you'd want them to sort of take away from the book as a whole?
I think if if I'm honest, now the book's been out there for a few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
love your reviews and everything, but I've had people read the book that are from when I grew up, not family members, but people, adults from around when I was a
Yeah.
child and stuff. And they've messaged me directly and said, like, is this so and so, and is this so and so? And I've been honest and said, no, they're fictional books. It's based in the right
Yeah.
area and all that stuff. And a lot of responses I've got are, oh, it's just I remember that happening, and I remember this, and I remember that, and I've gone back and said, well, some of it obviously is
Yeah.
accurate because that's what it was based around. Anyone that reads the book, I want them to, when they're an adult, never be able to refer to somebody that went through that with the phrase, I remember some of that happening. I mean,
Mm.
I want it to be an eye opener that makes people say this stuff isn't okay, rather than,
Yeah.
oh, I remember that. That wasn't great, was it? Well, then where were you when that was happening then?
Yeah.
Where was the help? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the message I would want to get across. Read it, understand it, fall in love with the character. It's going to be 4 books. You're going to see a lot of
Yeah.
recovery through it, and hopefully you'll have a big old happy ending at the end of it. But mostly, be aware of what it's like to be a child. Well, you're going to walk in those shoes when you're reading it. Do bear that in mind when you see people out in the real world and you've got family members that aren't quite right. And, it's a lot about mental health since COVID. And that
Yeah.
awareness, I think, is just huge.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think writing the story down changed your understanding of your own experiences and made you reflect on things a little bit differently or more deeply than you have done before?
I Again, no, I think the counselling made me reflect a lot more
Yeah.
deeply. What this has done is this has probably exposed me a lot. So,
Mm.
hopefully there's going to be millions of strangers that will read the book, but there's also a few very close friends and
Mm.
my new family that I'm now a part of that have read the book. And it's quite, you build up a bravado as an adult, and 40 years old now, you don't necessarily talk about your childhood a lot. You get over it, you move on, you live your life, you have your own family. And then
Yeah.
suddenly they can all open it and, they'll decide which bits were real and which bits were fiction. We don't need to talk about that bit, but they know the core of the story was based around
Mm.
me being unhappy as a child and deciding to put pen to paper. And I think it's been quite exposing for your friends to see what it was like for you to
Yeah.
grow up. They've all been very supportive about it, so
Yeah.
that's great. But that was the most difficult bit, I think, is suddenly saying, well, this is how I felt, and then forcing other people to feel the same by reading an immersive book.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I know you've obviously talked a little bit about people that you know and their reception to the book and how it's gone down, but how has it gone down in the wider community? I know you said you've had some positive reviews. What has the reception been like overall to your book?
Really good. I mean, we haven't had the most reviews in the world, obviously, because it's still quite fresh out. We've
Yeah.
had maybe 30 Amazon reviews. We're tracking at about 4.93 or something like that. I think
Wow, that's really good.
I'm still hunting down every good read and every Amazon, waiting for that first bad one that I can start to get annoyed about and
Yeah.
I think start to react about, and it's not come yet. So yeah, positive, really positive. There's been, obviously, we gave away a lot of free books to go to like independent bookshops, and I hope we
Mhm.
could sort of build a bit of traction there. And
Yeah.
they've read it, and there's online reviews there. And I think every time I Google my name in the book, there's more stuff on the internet about people reading it, and everything's just been really positive. And
Yeah.
I hope that's not because of the type of book. I hate to think that people would feel they can't criticize it because
Mm.
there's a charitable contribution. It's based around children's mental health. If you don't like the writing, by all means, tell me you
Yeah.
don't like the writing. But so far, really positive. And like I say, I've got close friends who have been kind enough to read the book before it goes out
Yeah.
to give me an idea of what you think about it. And I was quite stunned by their reaction. And, I'm talking to them saying, well, there's no dinosaurs, there's no dragons, there's no laser fights. Are you sure it wasn't boring? And they're sort of saying, no, I really enjoyed it. I was really,
Yeah.
I can't wait for book two. And you never believe it. You're always like, are you sure? Because I
Yeah.
found it a bit boring, but of course I found it a bit boring because I was writing it. So yeah,
Yeah.
the reaction's been overwhelming. I think it's been so supportive, and yeah, every review that's come in has been great. We've sold a lot of books. We haven't had a lot of
Yeah.
reviews, so I'd like more reviews. I think just
Yeah.
trying to, that is our bread and butter as authors. Is the more reviews you get, the more people are likely to buy the book. So that's obviously the next battle, is trying to get people to review it. You get so many individual messages through saying, that reminded me of being a child, and I remember going through things like that, and you've written it so well, and I really enjoyed it, and you engaging back, and at the end you're like, don't forget to put review. And then
It feels a bit
the review
awkward,
doesn't
doesn't
go
it?
on, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh please.
Yeah, exactly. You know what though? I am so bad for not reviewing things, like just in general. But then since doing this podcast, I'm making an effort now to go and start reviewing things because I know how valuable it is to you guys as
That individual
authors to
impact
hear
is
those
huge.
reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I am making more of an effort to do it now. So I will review your book when I read it. I promise
Thank
you.
you.
I promise you I will do that. Have you had any responses in particular that have really like stayed with you and meant something like specific to you?
Yeah, there was one so we did a bit of a book tour before it
Mhm.
came out, and we went to, I think, 10 or 15 people that had a chance to read it before the launch, and it was the first time the book had gone out to anybody I didn't know. So the publisher had read it, my friend had read it. It got me to help me with my decision making and everything. I've got 3 or 4 close friends that read it, and everyone had come back really positive. And you're always a bit like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, we'll share. Probably come back and say that was rubbish because we know we're about to sell it.
Yeah.
So valuable input, but you take it with a pinch of salt. And then it went out to book reviewers, but proper book reviewers, like people that
Yeah.
review books all the time. And they got 2 to 3 weeks to read it, and then they were asked to then publish a review on their Instagram saying what they thought of it, and that was how we sort of got the book out there.
Yeah.
And I think about 5 days into that experience, I was waiting for somebody was going to finish it first,
Yeah.
and I was hoping I would hear something back. But one of the reviewers, and if she's listening, I'm sure she'll know it's her. But one of the reviewers messaged me on a Friday night at 9 o'clock. My wife had gone out for a meal. I put both kids
Yeah.
down. I was settling down. I was minding my own business, and I got this message on Instagram that just said, "Look, I'm halfway through your book. It's amazing. I love the writing. It really reminds me of being a child. It reminds me of what I went through, and I think you've been so brave to write it, and it's a pleasure to read it." And I'm comfortable within myself, but I cried a little bit as I read it
Yeah.
because it was the first external review, and she hadn't even got to the end of the book before she
Yeah.
decided to then flick me a message. And then I
Wow.
messaged back a couple of times and just said thank you, and I closed it off quite quickly because I was getting a little bit emotional, and I thought I can't
Yeah.
take much more of this. So I
Yeah.
closed it off quickly, and then she finished the book a few days later and then came back and gave me another little message saying that I finished it and it was really good right to the end. I can't wait for the second book, and thank you for allowing me to read it and for really
Yeah.
giving a chance for people to understand what it was like for people like me and you to grow up. And when she sort of said people like me and you to grow up, I thought I've really nailed this how I
Yeah.
wanted to, even if for no one else, just for that one person.
Hmm.
Suddenly she feels really heard within
Yeah.
the concept of the book, and I thought, well, it was worth it because one stranger, it felt like that book changed something for her, and
Yeah.
that was sort of my moment where I thought, well, actually, this could be all right.
Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. So obviously she recognized things in herself in the book, which I can imagine must be so powerful for you. What would you say to someone then who might be listening, who reads your book and recognizes things for themselves, like they might have gone through something similar or had a similar situation happening? What would you say to that person?
I think because of the type of book it is and the type of reader that it will engage, I think nobody's going to read that book whilst going through it. Everybody's going to read that
Yeah.
book and remember it being very similar. I think there's an opportunity there to, like I say, to feel a part of something. And, if they want to put themselves in Alex's shoes as the main character, they're welcome to. If they just want to see
Yeah.
how it played out with somebody else, they're welcome to. But there's a validation in, even if you read a couple of chapters and feel like, hey, that happened to me, I remember that. There's a validation in things like that happening to other people. Like we circle right back to that counselling point where she said, what you're talking about isn't okay. Don't
Yeah.
ever let somebody tell you it's okay.
Hmm.
We talked a little bit about it's the 90s and, oh, my dad hit me, so I don't hit you half as much as my dad hit me. Doesn't make
Yeah.
that okay. And,
No.
when they read this book, it's a chance for them to realize that it wasn't okay no matter who it was, not just because it wasn't them, and they can be a part of something, they can feel some validation, they can enjoy the 4 books of this person hopefully coming out of this spiral.
Yeah.
They can get angry with characters that remind them of characters they knew, and that's that immersive part of it. And it's not for everybody. Some people will read it who've had a perfect upbringing, happy in life, read it and think, I can't identify with it. Some people will have had the worst upbringing you can imagine. They'll read it and say, well, there's nothing that much wrong here. This happened to me and
Yeah.
that happened to me. That middle ground is where we're
Mm.
looking for, where people can feel a bit of validation.
Yeah. What would you say to someone then who is wanting to share their story if they've gone through something similar in a way? What would you say to someone as advice for sharing that story?
I think it goes back to why I wrote the book. Write it for yourself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't polished when I wrote it, and I had to go through a lot of spelling and grammar changes, and it's gone through editing. I didn't finish school. I didn't get all my A levels and didn't go to
Yeah.
university and all that sort of stuff. You really don't have to have an imagination or a story to tell.
Mm.
Write it for yourself, and then if you want it to go out to the world, someone will help you make
Yeah.
it into a book. Nobody, because quite often, I always say, like, I didn't have it worse than everybody else, but I was the first one to pick up a pen and say, I'm going to write it down.
Yeah.
Somebody else can write it down. It's absolutely fine. They can do their own story. They can get it through. A publisher will give it a nod. And then, similar to me, they'll say, I like it, but why don't you have enough, what's your problem with paragraphs? Why do you hate paragraphs? And in the edits back, I think we added about 12 pages just by moving paragraphs. And
Yeah.
nobody's expecting, and so many people are put off because I could never write a book because I'm not good at spelling or I'm not good at grammar and all that. It doesn't matter. Just write your book for you. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you want to push it on for other people, people will be out there to help you. But
Yeah.
writing that sort of book for to make money or to go straight into publishing, I don't think works. I think you have to write it for yourself and write it for the right
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant advice. I do. I think that is really good. Has writing this book sort of shaped you as an author then and what you wanted to do in the future? I know you said you want this, it's going to be 4 books altogether. Have you got any plans for maybe after that? And has it shaped you in a way to do more?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I love it. Like it's just, it's
Yeah.
suddenly I feel more comfortable in my own skin. And I think when I was writing the book and I was in the querying stage, and maybe this just comes from my age of, I've just turned 40, people would be like, oh, what you up to? What'd you get up to outside of work? The idea
Mm.
of saying to somebody, oh, I'm writing a book was just so cringy for me. And,
Yeah.
and then they're going to ask and you go, oh, I'm writing a book about, child's mental health, and it gets even
Mm.
worse, so,
Yeah.
so yeah, but then you get to a point where you do have a publisher and you do have a publishing deal and you realize actually, like I said before about Amazon, there's so many people out there self-publishing. It's so hard to
Mhm.
get heard of being a noise, but I managed to get a publisher. So immediately you start to say, well, I've got that validation that we all seek. Somebody out there has said this piece of work can go
Yeah.
forward, and you start to believe in yourself. And my confidence has gone through the roof with this. And I want to keep doing it. I want to write the 4 books. And then when I finish that, suddenly I'm in the car driving to work and I'm thinking about the next type of book I
Yeah.
want to write. And do I want to go and do some fantasy? Do I want to go and do some romance? Actually, I know I've got a writing style and I've got people that follow me and I've got a publisher. I
Yeah.
could write books forever as long as the content's
Yeah.
good enough. I always will go back to the publisher and say, can you read this for me? And
Yeah.
where at the querying stage, you're so pushed for somebody to just believe in your first 3 chapters. When you've already got a
Yeah.
publisher, they know your work, they know that you've sold books, they'll read it for you. And yeah, I think one day I'd love to just be an author. It obviously won't be with
Mm.
this 4 set of books because I'm going to take enough money off of it to pay for the stuff that it costs me. But other than that, I want to try and make a difference to other people. But
Yeah.
if we sell enough of them and my name gets out there and there's an opportunity there for me to go and do a new set of books and actually that becomes my career, what a wonderful change of pace. So
Yeah.
yeah, I want to keep doing it. I'm enjoying it. And I hope that anybody else that's writing a book just keeps their head up and just keeps enjoying it, because then you just need that one moment of luck, don't you? And
Yeah.
suddenly it's very real. And I know how frustrating it is when you're querying and you're thinking, have I wasted a year writing a book? But
Yeah.
as long as you enjoyed it, it was worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. I love that. If, as long as you enjoy it, it was worth it. I completely agree. So, if someone listening now wants to go and pick up your book and read it, give us your elevator pitch of why they should do it. Why should they read your book?
You're not going to get anything else like it, I think,
Mm.
is my unique selling point. You're not going to pick up a book where it's immersive, where you feel like you are the character,
Yeah.
and you've not seen it everywhere. So you go to fantasy and everything ties in together. Lord of the Rings ties into Game of Thrones, it ties into
Yeah.
Narnia. They're fantastic pieces of work. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've read them all. They're amazing. So I'm the
Yeah.
biggest fan in the world. But you know what you're picking up. You know what you're getting into. With this book, you'll pick it up and you'll read it within 2 days, I think is the average I'm getting. Most people say they read it within 2 days, and you'll
Yeah.
finish it and you won't know how to feel. And if you want to feel from a book, this is the one. You're not going to pick it up and see loads of fights and dragons and all that sort of stuff and a
Yeah.
load of romance, but you're going to feel so much emotion from it that you'll finish it and hopefully you'll want more. But even if you don't, you'll feel like something's changed within you from reading it.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. I cannot wait to read it because it really sounds like something I'll enjoy and resonate with. So yeah, I'm really excited. And everyone that's listening, make sure you go get it. Is it on Kindle, did you say? You can get it on Kindle.
Yeah, it's on Kindle Unlimited. So we went Kindle
Yep.
Unlimited. It's on normal Kindle, Amazon, Waterstones, independent bookshops, anywhere you want to go for a book, it's there. Just go and find them and he's waiting for you to read them.
Amazing. Well, what we'll do now is, and I do this with every guest that comes on the podcast, whether they're a reader or an author, you are luckily both, so it's great for you to do. But it's just some quick fire questions like this or that, or like short answers. So does that sound okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Amazing. So the first one is Kindle copy or physical copy?
Physical.
Yeah, definitely. I completely
Yeah,
agree.
no brainer.
Yeah. Next one is, do audiobooks count towards books you've read?
Yes.
Yeah?
I mean, I tend to listen to audiobooks. Like, I listen to all the Harry Potter ones because I love Stephen
Oh,
Fry's
yeah.
voice reading them, but I tend to listen to ones I've already read
Mm-hmm.
to get a bit. So my favorite book is Count of Monte Cristo. So listening to the
Yeah.
audiobook of that, I took in a lot more than I did the first time I was reading
Yeah.
it. So I wouldn't listen to an audiobook as a first time, but I'd certainly listen to it as a reread and then consider it.
Yeah.
I've read Count of Monte Cristo more than once. So,
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. That works. Series or standalone?
series.
Series. I mean, you've
I
got to
like
say
to.
that because yours is going to be a series.
Yeah, I mean, I
So,
like to just feel like I'm stuck into something for a while.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, some of the books that you've referenced, obviously, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, like all of those series. So,
Yeah.
I can completely see it. Would you DNF a book or would you push through and get to the end?
Before I'd written a book, I'd DNF it. But now I've written it and seen how hard it is, I finished the book.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that's so funny. The other author who I recorded with today said exactly the same thing. Like now she knows how much work goes into it. She will push through to the end, and I can completely see it from that point of view.
there's
Definitely.
little tricks as well, like with Kindle Unlimited, because they pay the author by the page. When I'm talking to
Yeah,
people now, they talk about DNFing. I'm like, yeah, still flick to the end though, because they'll
yeah,
still get paid.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Like the system.
What would you say is the most overused trope in a book? So a lot of people have said like enemies to lovers and things like that. Do you think there's anything that's a bit overused?
No, I don't. Do you know what? Because I think it's so hard to come up with an original idea.
Yeah,
There's so many books out there, and again, having written books, I know how difficult it is. And once you've got a dream of how you want your book to go, it's a horrible thought that you can plow so much into it to then be told it's an overused trope, because
yeah.
everyone's individual. So I'm gonna say no on that one and sit on the
Okay.
fence.
That's fine. You're the first one who said that, and you know what? I love it. I love that the reasoning behind it. I can completely understand that. What would you say is your favorite fictional world? If you had to go and live in one, which would you choose?
It would be Harry Potter. I think just because the age growing up, I was there at midnight at Tesco waiting for the book to be released every year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're not the
it's
only one who
always
said
stuck
that.
with me.
No,
Yeah.
I completely get it. It's the nostalgia of it,
No,
isn't
in my
it?
luck, I've been stuck on the Muggle side, but that's where I want to go.
Typical that would be. What would you say is your desert island book, or it can be a series?
That would be Count of Monte Cristo. I
Yeah.
think it's like 6 books in one. It's just covers. I don't know if you've read it, but
No.
it's such an intelligent book. It teaches you so many lessons around patience and the importance of education as well as anything else. And then there's so much action in it and so much romance. And yeah, it's just got everything in there. It's just my perfect
Yeah.
book. I could read it over and over again.
Wow. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never read it, so I might have to add that to my
for me, it's
TBR now after you've mentioned it. Fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction.
Yeah,
Like I said,
yeah.
I read very different to what I yeah.
Yeah, it's very rare that I have people say non-fiction. So yeah. Would you say that you would crack the spine on a book, or would you try to avoid it?
I try to avoid it, if I'm going to be honest. I like them to go back on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing, probably about how I grew up, but I would not crack the spine. I'd want it to go back in perfectly. But I tell you, if my daughter picked up the book and cracked the spine, it would not bother me at all.
No.
Because I
Yeah.
think I grew up the opposite. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're trying to
I'm
be
like,
the
yeah,
opposite
just
now.
throw it on the floor, it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Rip the pages out, throw them in
But
bits.
then I'm touching it with like a glove.
Yeah. Taping it back together. Yeah. And finally, would you judge a book by its cover?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I would. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like AI covers, and I know we're limited, especially when you self-publish and stuff. But I think you can really see an AI cover at the moment, and
Yeah.
they put me off, and that's a horrible thing to say because I won't say a trope is overused, but I'll say I don't like your AI cover, stupid to an artist.
Yeah.
So
But no, I
I
get
know there's a
it.
bit of a contradiction there, but I look at an AI cover and sometimes I'll just go, oh, I'd stay clear of that.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much for answering those. And thank you so much for being on the podcast and telling us all about your book. It honestly sounds really great. I can't wait to go away and read it. And thank you for just being so honest and open about the experience it was for you writing it and getting it published. I'm sure there's a lot of information in this podcast that will do someone some good somewhere who also wants to publish their book. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, everyone that's listening, make sure you go check out Growing Pains, which is available on Kindle, in Waterstones, independent bookstores, as Joseph has said before. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Lovely. Thank you for having me.
No, it's okay. And make sure you go check out Growing Pains as soon as possible. And thank you to everyone that's listening. Make sure you go and follow Joseph as well. Just tell us before you go what your social media is and where people can find you.
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and they're both at Joseph Ball Books.
At Joseph Ball Books. Brilliant. Well, thank you again. And thank you to everyone that's listening.